You're listening to Funny Peculiar with Jeff Downs.
Welcome to another episode of the Funny Peculiar podcast. Thanks for listening, thanks for downloading, and keep telling your friends, keep sharing as much as possible. I really appreciate your support. This week I have my first full-length international interview from America with Acrobatrix, who are Etienne and Leah, and they were very good to give me their time. They just done a show and I managed to catch up with them, and we talk about everything, the Renaissance fairs they do, the prep it takes to do an act like this. It's very physical for them, and how they keep it fresh. But anyway, you'll hear that all in the interview. Follow them on Instagram, Facebook, or their website. So it's Acrobatrix. I'll spell that for you. It's Acrobatrix, acrobatrix.com, or that's Facebook and Instagram. You can follow them there. So without further ado, let's go over and meet the guys. Welcome to another episode of Funny Peculiar Podcast, and it's with great pleasure that I have my very first international acts from America. So welcome to the wonderful Acrobatrix. Hi guys.
Whee!
Hey, there they are.
We're applauding. Congratulations.
We have to make our own applause on this show, yes, as we have to generate. And I'm talking to Leah and Etienne. Hi guys, how you doing?
Hey. Hello, the internet.
You are, and so now, and since I've started this podcast, I've been chatting to all sorts of performers now, and you guys are a double act as well. So that's now. Do you perform your own solo pieces, or you're always a double act?
So we have a 45-minute comedy acrobatic show, and it's a two-person comedy acrobatic show, and the whole show is just us two.
But within that whole show, we do each have solos where in some moments Leah will take the lead, and it's all about her, and I'm just like the water and towel boy, and and vice versa.
But we really make it, because we have a comedy acrobatic show, it's very character involved. So when Etienne is doing his solo and he's doing his thing or his juggling bit, I'm making jokes on the side, or he'll refer to me during it and I'll refer back to him and hand him a prop. So it still involves both of us, and it really creates a kind of a cohesive duo show.
Yeah, we're not just like presenting one another and then can just leave the stage. It's a
lot of the comedy in our relationship or in our show is about our relationship.
And it's almost funny, like, because when one of us is having the solo, the other person, they're almost acting as like a guidepost for the audience, like helping them to just going, well, this is the part that's funny, and here's where you clap, and not directly like telling them what to do and holding up signs, but it just makes the journey a little bit more smooth and fun and funny.
Because you're doing these, and I've seen the clips, and by the way, anybody listening as well, just say Acrobatrix on Instagram, so you can get them there. So that's Acrobatix,
Batrix.
Yes, ACRO. Sorry, ACRO. Batrix.
That's it. I'm not very well educated. You can tell I'm struggling with even just saying basic words. So they're Acrobatrix on Instagram. You've got your own website, which is acrobatrix.com, and you're on Facebook as well. So I'll just get that in now. So anybody, so that's brilliant. So go on there. There's loads of clips. There's loads of photos of all the stuff you do. And going back, and I've watched your performances, and I can see there's a love there of the acrobat stuff, the comedy as well. I love the bridge you do. That's quite a big piece of when there you go right over backwards, and Etienne, you're holding on to with both arms, basically. That's the bridge that you do, and there's lovely rapport there. So it's like, and so you do two sets of 40 minutes, or that's just so. You have to keep yourself pretty fit to be able to do a show that length.
Oh yeah. We have to, me personally, in circus you would call my role a porter.
A porter, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm a flyer.
So
I'm the one being lifted, and he's the one doing the lifting.
Okay.
So I'm in the gym easily 2 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Wow.
Just straight up weightlifting.
just to sustain that, obviously, to keep. So, and you guys, are you like, how many shows are you doing a week, in a month?
So when we perform at Renaissance festivals, which is about 50% of our work is at a Renaissance festival. And for those of you who don't know what a Renaissance festival is, it's a big outdoor event.
It's imagine Parc Asterix in France, but it's what they do. It's this really weird thing in the States where they kind of recreate their impression of a Renaissance village in rural England somewhere.
Right. Okay.
And Henry VIII is the king, and they'll pick one of his wives. At this one right now, I think it's Catherine of Aragon, and
it's a recreational family event that you can also easily come to without kids. There's lots of beer.
So it's there's like an artisan marketplace where they sell like cosplay costumes. They have armor, swords, you name it.
But similarly to a music festival, there are all these stages, and on the stages they have acts and shows, and the shows are about 45 minutes long.
And and they have all variety of shows. It's not just circus-y, acrobat-y stuff like us. They have abbreviated Shakespeare plays.
Okay.
It's the full run.
It ranges from theater to circus skill to
a lot of music.
There's also a lot of music and a lot of animals too. There's often like big cat shows or birds of prey shows.
There's jousting on horseback.
Wow, so it's all you've got it all going on. So it's just like this big medieval festival, basically.
That's right.
And they run.
And lots of fake British accents.
Yeah.
So many. With varying degrees of, wow, that's fairly,
that's
a good one.
Or that is not a good
to that's the
accent.
full Dick Van Dyke. Like, no.
So do you? So is this is the other acts. Doing fake British accent or
Correct.
The public, but everybody's trying to do. It's a bit like over here. We always try doing American and Canadian accent. I say the worst thing you can do is go up to a Canadian and say, "Are you American?" Because I've done that a couple. So we'll just point out that Etienne, you're actually from Montreal. Is that right? Am I getting right?
No, we live in Montreal.
You live in Montreal.
Not on tour. But I grew up in the north of France and also in the United States. I had dual citizenship.
Right, okay. Whereabouts in France are you from?
It's a place called Saint-Jacques-sur-Darnétal, and it's it's in Normandy, and it's really pretty close to Brittany. So
wow, fantastic. And Leah, you're from Chicago, is that right?
Correct.
Originally?
Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. So so there's the big medieval Renaissance fair. So you've just got all this performance going on. So
when we do festivals, we do 4 shows a day,
right,
2 days a week.
Wow, that's some going to keep that up.
And the fun thing is at this one we just did, we added on like a little 5th show at the end of the day, just to try out new material and just to hone it and sharpen it up and make it better.
And how do you come up with your? So I'm watching your clips, and again, I love the flow of what you're doing. And does the comedy help to, while you're doing the actual tricks and the stunts, to almost take a breather, that you'll have a few lines, so you then get into the next bit? Is that how it works?
And originally Leah and I both come from theater backgrounds. And when we wanted to create this show, we didn't want to create just a traditional circus acrobatic show, which is like 4 to 8 minutes to music, silent, just a lot of looking at each other in the eyes and vague dancing moves in between tricks. We wanted to give people something that was very different, that hadn't been around in a long time. Like back in the old days in vaudeville, you would have acts like this, but it's just at music hall. But it just isn't around as much anymore, and that was really our inspiration. And so instead of doing dancing moves between tricks, we do comedy and jokes.
And I think too, by creating characters, we have very distinct and exaggerated characters, and it allows us to reach an audience in a way that you can't do when you don't talk.
Sure.
And by creating these characters that people relate to and love and laugh at, and then we do these crazy tricks, it brings it really close to their face and really close to their hearts.
And I think it also kind of humanizes some of the tricks as well.
Yeah.
Because when you go to the circus, and you see some of these performers, they literally are superhuman in their feats, and you can, it's very easy to just put them up on this pedestal of just some, of some god of Olympus, whereas when you see someone who's kind of goofy and tells these jokes and has this relationship, it makes the tricks more accessible and relatable.
Yeah, because definitely when I've watched the clips, and there is a sort of, as I said, there's a really nice rapport, and there's a charm about what you do, and I think that's, and again, I suppose when you are performing to an audience, you want to be accessible as possible, and I take it this is from kids up to your grandpas and grandmas. Is that sort of what you're aiming at?
That's exactly right, and we don't do a kid show per se, but there's no real blue humor in it or anything like that. But it appeals to kids. They really get these characters.
What I like about our show and how we've structured it is because of Renaissance fairs having such a large demographic and a big range of people that attend them. Our show will ping different parts of people's brains depending on what they like. So a lot of the romance humor is very accessible to couples. The fact that our character names are Star and Thunder, it's really easy to remember and really cute for kids.
So
you come on and you've got these personas then, these two different characters.
Yeah, so the personas, they're a bit cartoonish in a sense, like they're exaggerated. They're inspired by a wide range of different things, but it was really to paint in very broad strokes. So because mostly when we do these outdoor festivals, you have to paint in very broad strokes because you're not in a theater where people can literally hear every breath that you take, and they're not like pinpoint focused in because of lighting and everything else around you is dark. It's like at these outdoor events, there's a million other things going on. So you need to be able to really reach them through all of the noise and the clutter.
And watching the crowd's reaction, which is they absolutely love it. I can see the clips. What's that like when you've trained that long to perfect that particular stunt, that particular acrobatic skill, and you pull it off? How does that feel when you get that?
Oh, it's electric. I think that it's wonderful, and it's really great that because we're at a festival, I can see my whole audience. I can see their faces, and I can see them laugh, and I get to talk to them after the show, and it's a very rewarding thing being able to talk person to person, face to face with your audience.
It's really nice. We're really lucky that we're able to inspire people and bring a real sense of connection to them. Just the other day we had this teenage girl come up to us after the show, and she said, "I've been through a bad breakup, and your show was the first thing that has made me laugh in more than a week."
That's so sweet.
And it's like the melodrama of being 16. but
it's fun, and it's really cool because I think in traditional circus you don't have that accessibility with your audience. After the curtain closes, you go backstage and they go home.
Yeah. Do you sort of like to meet your audience afterwards as well? Because a lot of acts, you're absolutely right, will just straight back home, but you kind of like to sort of chat to people as well.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, it's one of the most rewarding parts of it.
And at a Renaissance festival too, it's customary that at the end of your show you stand in your audience with a tip basket and you can ask for tips. And I think one of the interesting things about that is that people coming up to you and giving you $1 gives them an excuse to talk to you, and they suddenly have a reason to come up to you and ask you a question or tell you something that they would be too afraid to do that if they didn't have a reason.
And the other thing about when people they give you money at the end of the show, because it's different when we do cruise ships or anything else, that doesn't exist. But when they literally come up and give you money, there's this connection of that they realize that they're supporting you as an artist, and that your next show is thanks to them because of their contribution. It's that we really cannot do this without them and their support, and then they feel that as well. So we're really grateful for every member of our audience.
Yeah, and with the people, when the public come up and they chat to you after, do you get a sort of sometimes a bit of an odd question? What's the strangest question you might have been? I've had a fire. I spoke to a fire eater and someone came up to her and said to her, "Is that real fire?" So it's like, so do you get some very obvious questions, or what's the strangest?
People ask my weight a lot.
People ask
my weight.
People ask if like, do you ever drop her?
Yeah.
It's like wah.
It's kind of silly, and usually people are very respectful. It's very rare that we'll get anything that's inappropriate.
But I mean that.
It's more just curiosity.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of people, because I am a contortionist as well,
absolutely.
A lot of people wonder if my flexibility is natural or if I can just do that. And usually I just explain to them, no, it's something that I train and something that I was taught and that I work on and that I have to maintain as a skill.
And that's something, if I can ask you both now, because this is what interests me, is now, how did you get started in this, and what sort of, how did you get into circus performance, and were you both doing different disciplines, and how did you sort of come to meet? And that's my sort of big question.
So from my story is I first began performing pretty much straight up traditional theater, and then took a left turn when I was doing just improv comedy, because it was fun, and a circus clown came in the doors one day when I was trying to write a kid show, and then we wrote a kid show together, and then he helped me get into the circus as a clown, and then
and Etienne, just to pause you there for a moment, just for people listening, because over here in UK, improv isn't very big, but it's massive in America and Canada, as I remember it. Now, so improv, to people that might be listening, so that's literally like a comedy gig, but basically there's no script and it's just sketches, but it's all improvised. Is that right?
It's all improvised. What is, and here's a little bit of looking beneath the hood at the engine, is all of the content is improvised, but what you practice and you learn to be an improv comedian is the structure of what you're going to improvise. So you always know how you've got like a beginning, middle, and end. You figure out how to create different characters. You play with voices. Storytelling, and then you get suggestions from the audience. And there's various games that you can play in improv theater.
And that's really, and just to then fast forward to you guys now, when you do your double act, so do you find that you might improvise within your double act now? You have a script. Does that keep it alive?
Our script is very
it's very tight.
It's very tight, but something that we like to do, and because it is our own show, we don't have a director or a producer that we have to work under.
Sure.
We would like to keep it fresh, so we give each other a lot of space. If something funny happens on stage or something unexpected happens, we let it happen, and we find the joy and the comedy in that. We don't struggle to cover it up, Yeah. So a lot of comedy comes from that.
But there's it depends. Honestly, the honest answer also is it depends on the gig or the venue.
Yeah.
Because it's like at like these festivals, you can allow for space in your show, and you can take pauses and play with the audience a little bit. But in theaters or like on a cruise ship or anything like that, it's
very tight.
It's very tight.
And do you find the act that you do, your set, is different when you do the Renaissance fairs, is different from a cruise ship or different from another?
Yeah.
Do you have to tailor it? In what way will you do that?
In some ways it's content. Like, for example, we do perform on Disney cruise lines. And even though our show is family friendly, there's a difference between being family friendly and Disney appropriate.
So there are some references that we have to cut or edit. There are certain copyright laws that they have on things that we can say.
So when you say, just to say Disney appropriate, so they will say you can't say this word, you can't say a brand, or say
there's that, but it's also things like, for example, one of the parts of our show that's really fun is how we'll create these moments of suspense. Okay. And there are ways to do that. And there's a joke where we imply that a bowling ball in a balance trick will go shooting into the audience. And in Disney, you can't say that because
it implies audience danger.
It implies that the audience is under threat. And so Right, so you made that legitimately might terrorize a 3-year-old. So, and
Right.
Disney is hypersensitive to
Really?
everything.
I
Oh, yes.
didn't know that. Really?
And
They're quite
there are some things about yeah, and we understand because they're a very large company and they
sure.
have a lot of bases they need
Of
to
course, of
cover.
course. Yeah, yeah, understandable. And so, sorry, sorry to go back to Etienne. So you were doing theatre and you got into
Mhm.
improv. Sorry, I'm moving you
No,
all
it's all
over
right.
the show, but
It's all right.
It's okay.
it's just very interesting. So then you started theatre, and then you were talking about you were getting into circus
Then I,
skills, and so
right, so I
carry on.
I became I was auditioned and got into Ringling Brothers Circus, which in the United States they no longer exist, but they were at the time the biggest circus in the United States. They had these two massive arena shows,
Sure.
and I was a clown in the circus, which is pretty low on the rungs.
Right.
But I started to learn how to juggle, learned how to unicycle, do tumbling, all the basic skills. And funny enough, after that, I put together my own little half-hour show, doing juggling and magic, and where it took me to was performing at holiday camps throughout the UK. So
Ah,
I was,
right. Okay.
oh yeah, I was in at like British holidays, Pontins, Havens,
Ah,
and
right. Brilliant.
of course, Butlins in Bognor Regis,
You
Skegness, and
oh,
Minehead.
you've played all the big ones. You've made it. You've made it. You've been there.
Yeah, yeah, me and Oroville, you know.
Oh yeah, well that's the key. So you've been on with Keith Harris and Orville, have you?
Yeah, Keith Harris. I
Ah,
used to open for Keith Harris,
really? Oh wow,
and
right. Well, we all know him from the TV over here from the 80s and the 90s. So oh, fantastic.
yeah.
So you did a tour, and then you after the UK, then you sort of gravitated back towards the States. Is that right?
So yeah, so it was between like the States to France, just touring all over, and for a while I was doing a solo juggling show on cruise ships, and I did that for a number of years before I just started to get burned out. I just got I became tired of juggling. I became tired of just playing the same character I had created for that, and so I just said I want to quit doing this and took a break and moved to San Francisco to train handstands at a circus school, and that was where I met Leah.
And I was
Fantastic.
there, yeah. So
Yeah, please, Leah, tell us about how did you? Yeah, please tell me your journey.
I started doing theater when I was a kid as well. I did some professional theater as a child, and then I did a lot of film as a kid too. So I had a nice little cushion of performing experience, and then I found circus, and I really loved it. And I fell in love with the sharing aspect because I liked gymnastics as a kid too, but I didn't like competing, and I didn't
Right.
like the concept of winning or losing. I
Okay.
just wanted to do the tricks that I learned and be
Sure.
applauded for them. I didn't really need a medal, or I didn't want the pressure.
And
So
can I just ask? And is
yeah.
there, and in the States, and you say about winning and losing, is there a big sort of culture of winning that you must win? Is that quite a pressure that you didn't, for you, it was all about
For
the performance?
gymnastics, well, for gymnastics specifically, when I
And
started to get into it,
yeah,
if you wanted to get, I started doing gymnastics when I was like 6 or 7, and by the time I was 10, all of the other girls around me were auditioning to be in the team, and the whole
right,
part of being in the team was competing.
yeah,
And that's where I broke off and said,
sure,
no, I don't want to do that anymore, but I still want to move and I still want to get train. I liked training and getting stronger and learning tricks.
yeah,
So the circus, there's a recreational circus youth program that was perfect, and I fell into it, and I learned how to juggle and do unicycling, and I started stretching a lot more and doing contortion, and I absolutely loved it. And then
Fan-
I kind of began to realize that I could make a living doing it if I got good enough and learned how to market myself. So I started training more and studying more, and I went up to a circus school in Canada called École Nationale de Cirque, and I studied there over the summers, and I learned how to train and how to train for success and for consistent success. And then I went to the San Francisco Clown Conservatory at the San Francisco Circus Center to study clowning, and then I met Etienne there in 2012. So we kind of combined forces there, and we immediately really enjoyed being in a studio together and spending a lot of time training and practicing and learning things. And that's kind of where our love for each other started as well.
And there was a coming together there of the different disciplines that you learned. And just to talk about the contortionist, if I can, the training, and how, again, this is something people see all the time, and you guys make it look very, very easy, but how much training is involved, and just sort of take us through that process.
Contortion is such a specific thing. I think that it's such a very specific thing to train, and if you don't start young, it's very difficult to improve at a rate that will feel satisfying. So I got lucky that I had a contortion coach at a very young age, and when I was 13, 14, 15, and through the rest of my teens, I trained with her a few hours a week, and then I would stretch on my own as well. And a lot of it is...
Sorry, when you say you're training, so just take us through for people who will not know about this. So you're trying to obviously double up, bend over, do your joints. So you're trying to obviously get yourself into either a particular shape, or on one of your clips you get into a small yellow box, and that is small. And you have to sort of. So how do you go about then practicing to do that, to get into something like a small box?
The box specifically is an interesting element of our show, and an interesting contortion trick. It involves a hip flexibility more than anything else. The way that a contortionist kind of learns how to fit into a box is finding a box that's the size of the contortionist.
Okay.
So the way that I went about it, thanks to some advice from my other contortionist friends, is I got a cardboard box from a moving store, like a Home Depot style, and I fit myself inside of it, and then I cut it up and I made it smaller and duct taped it back together, and then fit myself inside of that. And then I kept doing that, cutting it up and making it smaller until I kind of figured out where my limit was.
Okay.
And then and then I worked with a circus builder to build the prop itself. And he put it together and he sent it to me. And then I figured out what's the most comedic and interesting way to get into it, where it looks like I'm very big and then I'm getting smaller. And it's all about presentation.
You also had to discover that you had to get a little more flexible, because there was a difference between cardboard being a little bit supple and this box being made of plexiglass and metal.
Yeah, it was a lot more resistant. It was difficult. I remember the first few weeks of it were really hard and frustrating. And it's difficult with a box too, because with a lot of circus tricks and a lot of performance work in general, usually the finish is big or cool, like there's a flip or there's some sort of presentation, where with a box, I'm literally making myself smaller and less dynamic. So I had to learn to make the process of me getting into the box funny, because that's really where the trick is. Me, at the end, when he closes the lid, I'm in there.
That's it. You're in there. You can't. Where can you go from there? Nowhere, quite literally. But yeah, of course, there's no ta-da at the end, because that's okay. So that's the journey. So meantime, Etienne, you have to obviously, when Leah's doing this, you've got to be not distracting the audience, but then you're doing comedy yourself and keeping them going while she gets into the box.
That's right. I'm kind of providing a little back and forth with some joke telling and some sound effects, and then I physically help close the door, and then just let them know it's the ta-da moment, and then she comes out.
Yeah, and then and how long? And I take it once you're in that particular position, you can't spend too long. You've got to get back out again, because I take it your lungs are crushed. Is that a medical? I don't know.
I've never actually really kind of sat in there and seen how long I could sit. A big thing that changes how comfortable it is the heat. If it's really hot outside and very humid, it's really uncomfortable.
It's also just like, for an audience, there's only so long you can go, yep, she's in there.
Yeah,
It's like, you know, like when David Blaine put himself in a box and hung himself on a bridge in London. You're like, okay, now what?
I sadly went down to have a look at that. I remember when that happened. But it was they were flying apparently because he wasn't supposed to eat food, was he? But the typical Brits over here, they were flying McDonald's Happy Meals on like little helicopters around the box to try and tempt him out. But apparently but then all sorts of celebrities like Paul McCartney was seen down there at night. They all were going down there to look at. Hey, it's entertainment. It worked.
Yeah.
So,
man in the box.
It's a man in the box. So it's So you've learned. So I want to ask. Because what do your family think about this? Because is it like, you know, they're just obviously very supportive, or is it like, that's what they want to do, that's fine? Is it just generally they're fully supportive of what you do?
Well, for my family, it was a little bit of a journey because they didn't really understand it at all. My father he's a career civil servant. My mother was a school teacher. So it really was this. I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers who are all very normal. Thank you very much. And so, you know, so I was a bit the odd one out. My mother is no longer here, but my father is very supportive.
Oh,
now
brilliant.
he's like our biggest fan.
Oh,
and,
fantastic! And
so it's really nice. He loves seeing us on the face page, as he calls it. And,
oh well, we got to give them their, you know, my dad's appalling with like iPads. He just, you know, you're supposed to make lists. He sticks Post-it notes to it with one of his lists. Says like the older generation. And what about you, Leah? Your family? They're all it's what she does, and they love it.
My parents are entertainers as well.
Right, okay.
My father's a professional magician, and my
brilliant.
mother met him as his assistant, but she's also a dancer and a magician herself. So they've always been extremely supportive. They taught me from a very early age that show business can be a living if you treat it like a business.
And has that been quite a big thing, that your parents were in show business and that kept you going and moving?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It taught me that it could be a real profession, and it never seemed like a dream that was far off. It just seemed like a dream that required a lot of personal motivation.
Sure.
And being self-employed in general, no matter what you do, it requires a lot of personal motivation.
I think one of the things that made it easy, like for Leah, that was difficult for me, was that because Leah's parents are both performers, when you're a professional performer, it's not just doing shows. It's a whole lifestyle. It's the food you eat, the house, the kind of house you live in. You know, you have to live in trailers sometimes of the year, and the whole nomadic thing, the touring aspect. And her parents understood that right from the beginning. Whereas with my family, they really, because they're so just, you know, you live in a house and you go to your job and then you come back and then you have kids and you send them off to school. They really didn't understand the lifestyle. And also, in fairness, when I first started, neither did I. There was a bit of a transition there. So that's just something that made it very, I think, was really nice.
Yeah, the concept of staying in one place never really fit well with me anyway. I always really liked to travel and switch things up. I find that if we stay in one place for 4 or 5 months, I start to get really antsy.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, and it's. Oh, so I'm sorry, I keep interrupting.
No, Etienne, no, it's the delay on the. No, Etienne, please carry on.
Okay, and the things like if Leah and I are in the middle of a tour, or we're on a cruise ship, or we're out somewhere, and we can't make it back to like a family gathering, you know, it's Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever. They understand completely, and it's just like, oh yeah, sure. Whereas with my family, sometimes if I can't make it to some kind of event, sometimes a little bit of resentment, and it's just something that is, you know, not always pleasant to deal with.
And it's because I suppose it's a sacrifice in a way that what you do. You know, it's difficult to have a normal 9 to 5 existence. You can't because of what you're doing. But you travel. I was looking on your website. I mean, you are all over so many dates. Just give us an idea of where you've performed and around the States, Canada. I mean, worldwide. Have you been?
Yeah.
Obviously, go on, give us a few countries. Where have you been?
I'm 3 states away from completing all 50 states.
Wow.
Which is fun. But we've performed at over 7 different Renaissance festivals across the country, ranging from New York to LA.
Okay.
And
but then you start to get in, like with the cruise ships.
Yeah.
We've been, like all around the Caribbean. We did a transatlantic cruise, which took us all the way to like Tenerife. We've done Alaska, Hawaii. Back when I was solo, I did the Mediterranean cruises. But we also, one of the very first places that we performed was we did the Edinburgh Festival in Scotland.
Ah, brilliant, fantastic.
That's really where we learned.
We learned a lot.
We learned a lot. We went there because we knew we needed our show to get better, and we needed to just log hours performing. So we did like 32 shows in 30 days. And
can you remember where you performed? Can you remember was it the Gilded Balloon? Was it the Pleasance Theatre? Can you remember, or was it?
No, we were doing the street performing. So we were outside. Right. Yeah, we had friends playing at the Gilded Balloon and the Pleasance. We had a magician friend who was there. But that festival is so unique and so in so many ways. We were able to have such talented people watch our performances out on the street and then give us tips and advice, and then we could watch so many shows and so many just good shows, bad shows, weird shows, normal shows, mainstream shows. It was such a hotbed of every kind of talent and inspiration, and we really came out of there so much stronger as performers, but also so much more inspired as artists as to the depth and range that of places we could go.
And I learned a lot about audience interaction too on the street, and watching a lot of buskers and street performers do their circle shows.
And can you remember where your first show together when you formed your partnership? Can you remember where that was? where was?
That was, we were in San Francisco because we were both training at the Circus Center in San Francisco, and at that time, just to kind of pay the rent thing, I was also street performing in the tourist area. It's called Fisherman's Wharf / Pier 39. And they have a little stage set up there. It's a pretty little stage. They've got seating and lights and sound. And so you do these shows for the tourists. And I invited Leah to come share my time slots with me. And
we did our first show together.
And as the story goes, the show was absolutely terrible.
It was so bad.
Really bad. But what was really... when we it's a pass the hat kind of situation, and at the end we made a decent amount of money, and we were both shocked because it was like that amount of money is not what that this is so much more than what that show was worth, because that show was so bad.
But the audience response was that they loved our chemistry together.
Yeah, they loved us better than they loved what we did.
So that told us that we really had something there, and we both had a really strong stage presence and a lot of comfort being on stage. So that difficult bridge for some artists to cross was already crossed for us.
It was like the audience was the casting director and just said, you found the perfect partner.
Yeah.
And so we listened to them, and then we said, okay, let's get a good show. Let's start to learn some tricks together. Let's start to write material. And let's do this thing.
And so you went from there. And so I was going to lead me on to another question, was your worst show. You've done all these different Renaissance fairs, and is there one time apart from that one, because obviously you were just starting, but was there any time where the props failed, or you're on a cruise ship and it runs ashore? Have you ever any time where it's just like, hang on a minute, this isn't going right?
There's only one time where it was just like it's just so minor. It was such a fluke. There was one time on a ship where we were using their microphones and sound equipment, and the stagehands, they were short-staffed and overworked, and they didn't check the batteries in my microphone pack, and the microphone died halfway through the show, and because there was, for some reason, all of the batteries, like the spares, were all locked up at another cabaret on the other end of the ship, and they couldn't replace the batteries, so I had to kind of shout my lines for the rest of the show. And
in a very big theater.
Yeah, it was a 1,000-seat theater. It was
1,000. Wow, that's huge.
Yeah,
it was huge.
So that was a bit of a disaster. And we had, I mean, that was also
the last time that we didn't bring our own sound equipment.
Yeah, after that, we always brought our own sound equipment and batteries and everything. We were like, never again will we let that happen to us.
You kind of, because sometimes I've done comedy over here and you turn up and there's no microphone, and so I was looking at your website, so you've got all your own equipment, because I suppose you've got to make sure it works and you can perform and the act can go ahead, I take it.
And a lot of what we do, because we're acrobats who talk, our equipment is, our cables are thicker and our attachments are special, so that when I'm climbing on his shoulders, our equipment is a little more heavy duty, because it's going to get thrown around and flipping through the air, and I need to make sure that during my contortion routines my microphones are in places where I'm not going to be laying on top of them. Or squishing them.
Yes, because you don't want to, in that position, to have a failure of equipment, you've got to check it. And what I want to know is, and last few questions, how do you keep your act fresh as well? Because you've been performing, how long have you been performing, guys, now, sort of together?
Over 5 years.
Yeah, this is our 5-year anniversary tour.
Wow, and how? Yeah, do you sort of see other acts and you think, we could do that, and do you try and come up with sort of new routines, or do you kind of, you've got what you've got and you just edge in the odd bit here and there?
We don't. If we're going to look at another act, we'll look at another act that does something completely unrelated to us. We don't want to look at another acrobatic act and go, let's just steal their signature bit, because that's just not cool. But one of the things we do is we will take a few months off out of the year, and we will go, typically we'll go to Montreal, and we will train with circus coaches of Cirque du Soleil, and we'll learn new tricks. And then, during that time, we'll also spend time just writing jokes and coming up with ideas.
So you almost go back to your root of the circus skills to sort of, get yourself back into it, and then you build up again to new routines, or is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. And Cirque du Soleil, that's massive as well. Is that quite sort of kudos to be asked to train with them, or people there? Is that a big thing?
Yeah,
as well?
It's through a few different kind of connections. We really like training up in Montreal with people that are in that industry, because oftentimes when we get into the studio, we're the least skilled ones there. There are people throwing things and tricks that are harder and higher than anything we'll ever do, and it's a very motivating force to be around that many people who are really skilled and really high level training.
What's interesting about Montreal is it's kind of like a factory town for circus. Where?
Oh, really? It's quite a big.
Well, it's where Cirque du Soleil is headquartered, and it's where they create all of their shows. But it doesn't. So in the sense, it's like this is where they build it, and then they export it out to the rest of the world to go see it. So it's neat to be in that factory town, and then
so you can feed off of that, basically, that energy and all the sort of circus stuff that's going on.
Oh, and you can learn from it too. It's great.
You learn. Brilliant. Well, listen, I've got one more question. Thank you very much again, guys. And this is going to be a great show. We're nearly 45 minutes, so it's been absolutely brilliant. And hey, you've been great guests, and I hope to. I want to sort of revisit all my early interviews in, I don't know, perhaps how many months or a year, and so I'm definitely going to speak to you guys again, catch up with you, and find out what you've been up to. But my one last question is: who do you think I should have on the show next? Who do you think I should interview for a future episode for Funny Peculiar?
Yeah, we have a friend named Kyle Craigle, and he is a Cirque du Soleil contortionist, and also in the drag scene, and he does some amazing makeup work.
Oh gosh, his Instagram is
stunning.
Okay.
He's done the Cirque du Soleil makeup project while he's been on tour with Cirque du Soleil. That's really super cool. And he has a really interesting story. I think he would be a great addition to your podcast.
Kyle would be amazing. Yeah,
Kyle
he's
Craigle.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Cragle is his last name.
I will check him out. He sounds
Please do.
fantastic. So
Tell him we
listen,
said hi.
I will do indeed. Listen, thank you ever so much again. Thank you for coming on the
thank you.
podcast. And just to tell people as well, so get to their website. It's acrobatrix.com. They're on Facebook, Acrobatrix, and also on Instagram. And YouTube. I found you on YouTube. There's loads of great clips, and also anybody listening in the States, well, there's the Renaissance fairs. Go and see them, and hopefully I might catch up with you and meet with you one day. But anyway, thank you very much again, Acrobatrix.
yeah, thank you.
Yay! Let's generate quick applause, and then let's all do just quickly give me your best English accents.
Oh no, I don't know. I'm scared.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
It's a jolly holiday with Mary.
So, well, I'll try and do an American accent because we just think everybody sounds like, oh my God, how you doing? All like this. This is all we think America is. So it's like this strange. But anyway, hey, that's the accents out of the way. Listen, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
You've been listening to Funny Peculiar. Tune in next week. More great guests.
So a massive thank you again to my guests, Etienne and Leah, better known as Acrobatrix, and they are on their 5th year anniversary tour. So check out their Facebook site or the website, Instagram, and go and see them. They'll be out there at the Renaissance fairs or wherever. You'll get the details. So a big thank you again for them coming on the show. As always, we've got great guests coming up. Keep downloading, keep listening, and a little shout out as well I'll do if you like podcasts and you're looking for different shows. This is a great one. It's called Mondeo Law, and it's Alex Boardman and Chris Kehoe. It's a comedian, it's a barrister, and they just take certain legal cases and they look at it, but it's very funny as well, and it's an irreverent look at the law, but also you learn a lot. So please, I recommend you check out Mondeo Law, and that's on iTunes. It's on all the big platforms. Anyway, thanks for listening to Funny Peculiar, and see you next week.